You can, but everyone will hear them. Let's just make this room off limits. There you are. No, just waiting for the signal from the bat cave. All right, thumbs up. Let's call this Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Hopefully everybody had a good summer and a break. I know from the administration I talked to today, there was some relief in the not having meetings, council meetings that is, over the summer. So hopefully everybody had a good break and welcome back. Jump in with both feet and get back to work here today. So with that, adoption of the agenda, we do have an in-camera item to add. So if we could add that to our agenda. Somebody wants to move that. Councillor Reid? Awesome. All those in favor of that motion? Carries unanimously. Perfect. On to the minutes. Councillor Flowers, in tradition from pre-summer meetings, do you want to?
I'll move to adopt the minutes of the last town meeting, Committee of the Whole.
Excellent. All those in favor of the minutes? Carried. We're cruising through our first meeting of, what, the fall? Feels like the fall. It was too chilly this morning. First item on the agenda is Cochrane Age Friendly. Mr. Ham making his way to the podium to introduce some presenters. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, evening. Such a pleasure to be the first presenter after the summer. Thank you for having me. Cochrane Age Friendly project. So a little bit of background. In 2017, we had some representatives from the town attend the Grey Matters Conference in Hinton. In 2019, FCSS applied to Calgary Foundation for funding to fund the project and project framework. And then in November 2019, we received $30,000 in funding. We had a delay because of COVID, and in November 2021, we received the funding from the Calgary Foundation and proceeded with the project, at which point we brought on Sharon Moore as a contractor to lead the initiative. This little infographic here gives us a little bit representation of how the government of Alberta sees the population growth between now and 2046. The main one here is just seeing a 1.4% increase in population per year, every year over until 2046, which is the government of Alberta estimation. And then you'll be seeing a doubling of the seniors community, both in the fact that we're living longer and more vibrantly, as well as just a relative aging into seniors as we go along here. So that's we're expecting a 1/5 of the population in Alberta to be senior by 2046. These are graphs that show that same information. And here's percentage growth over time. As you can see, the 85 and older crowd is increased by 329%, which I think has both to do in the fact that we're aging in place and people are living longer due to wonderful Western medicine. What is Age Friendly? Age Friendly is a model to enable active, healthy aging by focusing on 8 domains of community living. So we have the built environment, which is outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation, and housing. In the social environment, we have social participation, respect and social inclusion, and civic participation and employment. And in community and health support, we have community support and health services, communication and information, and there we go. This model helps communities to develop a plan engaging both traditional and non-traditional partners. The World Health Organization is the leader for the Age Friendly project. It's the Global Age Friendly Cities and Communities, and they've spearheaded the project. It fosters the exchange of experience and mutual learning between cities and communities worldwide by compiling evidence-based guidance on age-friendly environments, providing an information platform for sharing of information and experience, and nurturing and developing the World Health Organization Global Network for Age-Friendly Cities and Communities. What are the benefits of being recognized as an age-friendly community? Well, there's recognition from the Government of Alberta with a written acknowledgement from the Minister, promotion of community on Alberta's age-friendly webpage and in the age-friendly newsletter, national and international recognition for commitment to becoming age-friendly, entry into the World Health Organization Global Network of Age-Friendly Cities, and access to best practices, support and training from not only the World Health Organization, but the partnership communities. How do we get recognized? So first we establish an age-friendly advisory committee, and then we pass a local council resolution. Conduct an age-friendly assessment, and develop and publish an action plan that is measured and communicated to the community. Where do we begin? So we review best practices across the country. We connect to a provincial community of practice table, convene an age-friendly steering committee, have a resolution passed by Cochrane, conduct an age-friendly assessment of Cochrane, and then develop an evaluation process to measure outcomes. The Age-Friendly Steering Committee currently, as it sits, includes representation from the Chamber, Cochrane Society for Housing Options, Bethany Cares, Primary Care Network, Seniors on the Bow, Calgary Catholic Immigration Society, SCSS, AHC Mental Health and Addictions, Seniors at Large, Town of Cochrane Infrastructure, and Town of Cochrane Community Services, as well as Hawthorne Residential. What do we need from Town Council? A resolution in support of the age-friendly framework, council champions to support the age-friendly framework, and resource support for the age-friendly program going forward. Age-friendly is where all individuals can be full and meaningful participants in the community. Any questions?
All right, thank you for your presentation, Mr. Ham. Councillor Reid?
Didn't appreciate I was first off the mark this time. Sorry. I had two questions. One was by the resolution of support. Does that have any long-term financial implications?
That will be entirely up to council. Supporting this right now, we could look at some opportunities for resources through grants or reserve funding, or we can look at this as a more sustainable project where we would apply resources and look for over a long term of resource management internally and pursue this. Ultimately, this framework is large in scale, and it will require a resource to apply to it and to act on its behalf.
Right. Yeah, I love the idea, and I'm happy to, as one individual councillor, to be supportive of that. I need to get my head around that, what that resolution and support means, and I recognize that the answer is yes, possibly. Second question I had, if I could, was, are there any conditions from the Calgary Foundation? Having a little experience with them in the past, I know that they like to provide seed money in hopes that something more established will find its roots on a more permanent basis. Are there any conditions to the money that we've received so far from the Calgary Foundation?
The only conditions that we have with Calgary Foundation is just an understanding and reporting through that system. They do provide large-scale funding through the foundation through all types of donations and proceeds. And so depending on the project type and scale and magnitude, the types of reports required as well as the advancement of the program is very dependent. In this case, the funding has been used and we will report on that, and then the intention here is that we would move forward independently of Calgary Foundation.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. My first question was the financial consequences, which I think I just heard is what we make of it. What was the answer, Mr. Ham? I was also wondering of financial opportunities. What sorts of grants are out there? Have you had a look to see, is it substantial money out there to achieve? Have you seen?
A lot of our understanding of that will come after the letter of commitment and resolution through council, but we do understand that there are some funding models out there that are either match funding or potential full or 100% grant funding, just depending on how those fit in provincial and federal models. But we do have CIP as well as New Horizons, so those are a couple. Yeah, and we can still rely on the Calgary Foundation to some degree, but my recommendation would be to looking towards making this a sustainable project for the town going forward.
Okay, thank you. The only other question that was brought up there was, we already have an advisory committee, is that right? I guess I didn't know about it because there's no council rep on it, but that's already going at large?
Yeah, we have an established advisory committee that we've been working with, or steering committee, sorry, and then that advances again with council support because we will have council representation.
Okay, excellent. And I was pleased, I think, to see all the different, it looked like all the different seniors living opportunities in Cochrane were all together at that table, which is one nice place where we're actually communicating between our different seniors' residences in Cochrane. Is that right? At the committee? Yeah.
I came into the project relatively late because I joined the town in February, and it's a very sophisticated group that are very interested in moving this project forward.
Okay, great. Seems like a easy thing to support, at least at this stage, and thank you.
Councillor Flowers?
Thank you. So I have been sitting on the Seniors Advisory Committee as a council rep since, well, for 2 or 3 years now, I think. And so we've been part of developing this steering committee, and I've gone to some of the meetings, and there's a lot of excitement at the table. There's just so many places that we can improve the quality of life for seniors here in Cochrane. And knowing that our population is booming, we don't want to miss any opportunities. There's grants coming through, and the fact that the Calgary Foundation put $30,000 in is pretty amazing. So work's being done all over the province and the country that advice can come from on things that we can do, best practices, and where to get grants. And there's just such a movement in that area that, like I say, I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity. So I'm excited about this project, and a letter of support is an easy way to start. Who knows what'll be in the future, but can only get bigger and better for the seniors. I just wondered if you could give us some examples of things, changes that communities have made that makes their communities better for seniors.
Councillor Flowers, I really appreciate the opportunity to explore that. I do have these wonderful individuals with me here that would love to speak to that.
I have worked with Ms. Moore in a previous elder abuse project, so I know that she's a knowledgeable person on this topic.
Thank you. It's a privilege to speak. It's my first time in the council chambers, so this is quite exciting. It's beautiful. Anyways, I've had the privilege of interviewing probably over 10 different best practices in Alberta as well as Ontario that have age-friendly initiatives. And it's really exciting to hear the excitement that they provide. And all of these communities have had the initiative going for at least 5 years, and majority are 10 to 15 years. So one of the questions I asked when I interviewed, what are your successes? I said, I know that our council will want to know, like, what have you done for the community? So I do have a list with some of them. Fort McMurray, one of them, they were actually, they instilled some vehicle for hire bylaws through the research on the best practices. So they have that example that could be available. I think one that I've heard from every community is designing the curbs so that wheelchairs can easily go down from, even in the main town of Cochrane. When you look at our sidewalks, if they have to cross, they need the ability to take their walker and to be able to move along. And so I think that one is also one that they ask. Also, if you look at some of the parking for wheelchair parking, if you look at it, you don't have the curb that's slanted so the wheelchairs can go off, so they can actually park there, but they have to take their walker to go down the end of the street to be able to move up onto the sidewalk. There's some basic things that can be done. One community also incorporated equipment so that seniors, when they go for walks, they could actually, it's equipment placed into playgrounds. So there's stretching equipment. So they might go out for a walk, but there's also bars that they can stretch with in the playground. So if they're there with their grandchildren, they actually have the ability, rather than just sitting on the bench, to provide some exercise for themselves. Another one, education programs on ageism is huge. And how do we incorporate an understanding on the new seniors that are aging? I'm one of them, so I can speak to this. But to understand what ageism is and how seniors are an active part of our community still. They come with knowledge, they come with great skills. So how do we utilize them and how do we make sure that they're a part of our community? So that's a huge one as well. Also housing, there was actually a 4-part series on housing that was put forward in our community, in our province. And with that, it talked about, if you walk around your community and if you look at houses, how many don't have steps? You know, when we build our homes, they have all these steps that move up to the front door, which when the grandparents go to visit, and if they do have a walker, how do they get up to actually go and visit the families in our communities? So moving forward, there's quite a few new examples on developments on how they're making, when they build homes, it's not about building a home for a current family, but how do we build into our structures the ability for people in the future, for people with disabilities or people that might need to use a walker or a wheelchair to get into the home. But right now, we're not accessible because of how we build our homes. So it's, again, education around that, working with developers and looking at how can we be one of the communities in Alberta that really presents structures that work and that we become the age-friendly community to live in. Many of our families are living in Cochrane and they're wanting to bring their parents to the community to live. We don't have accessible low rental, we don't have accessible housing for these parents to come into Cochrane to live. So how is that going to change the outlook on families that are living here? So I think it's an economical outlook as well, and many of the communities have already done reviews on that we can access and actually bring to the table. So I have a list. I can keep going. I'm very excited about this project, and I'm really excited when I see your heads nod and say, yeah, we're ready for this. So it's a very exciting and very long-term project. Thanks.
Ms. Moore, can I ask you one more question before you leave the podium? So what's involved with doing the resolution, and do you have other examples from other communities that have done it?
Oh, lots. So we have, and it depends on what you want. So we have lots of samples of resolutions, and a part of the resolution is to say, we're in this. We're committed to having an age-friendly community. This is how we're going to do it. And so you could add that to the resolution. The resolution could immediately just be, we're committed to this. We'd like you to bring forward the plan and strategy so we can review it. Fort McMurray just put a committee that was a committee appointed by council together. There's lots of examples that I can bring to you with best practices that are completed here in BC, right across Canada. So yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Padeco?
Thank you for your information. I think the one thing that kind of hit me was about the housing. I don't know if we can talk about initiatives that are really, age-friendly initiatives without talking about housing and being able to have proper places for people to live. And I can tell you that the one thing that I've heard many times over is that most of our housing, when people are looking to downsize, it all has stairs. It not only has one flight of stairs, it might have 5 flights of stairs, and laundry is now in the basement, right? So a lot of times what people are looking for is the ability to be able to move out of their home, but then move into something smaller. I don't want to say a tiny home because I think that gets misconstrued with maybe, kind of eco-friendly movements that maybe not necessarily seniors are looking for, but just a small plot of land in a 1-level home that is affordable, and we do not have that here in town. Also, if I look back at 2015, 2016, Bethany was looking to expand some of their housing. I have no idea where that project is at. I think we've asked, and I think I've asked, and nobody seems to know where that housing plan is at for them to be able to expand. And obviously that is not our initiative, that's the province's initiative, but I really do think that this is multifaceted, and housing has to become the forefront of where we're putting people, and what does that look like for their long-term future? Because to be quite honest, if I'm moving here to be by my grandkids and I'm in my 50s, 60s, I might be able to make the stairs now, but another decade, maybe you're not, right? And where do you go? And I don't know if we can focus on the rest without really focusing on how people are going to live and how they're going to sustain themselves in our community. And it's got to be affordable. And I think we need to push back a little bit on development that happens here in our town. Don't just build up. Build something that people can actually move into and plan long term, because that's how you make a whole community.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I really just wanted to say that I certainly appreciate bringing this lens to how we're looking at the future of Cochrane, and certainly the built form changes always intrigue me, and be great to get some standards there. I know we've kind of had those conversations before. In your presentation, of course, the fact that our seniors demographics of 64 and over has increased 172.4%. I mean, that really does change which type of community we're needing to develop and provide for. Anyway, so I think this is a great first step in the project. You know, the goal is that we all become seniors, and so we need to make sure that the community, that we can still live in the community when that happens. Alex, that. And Susan. Anyhow, I think it's a great lens, and I look forward to the resolution coming to council so we can support it, and then, you know, getting the benefits of participating in this project. So anyhow, I think it's a great lens, and I'm looking forward to see how it moves. And perhaps the only thing it made me think of is, in getting the report of those demographics, is that if perhaps we could get to council a demographic forecast of the whole community prior to budget, just so that we can start making decisions with that lens in mind. And yeah, that's all I got. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, not much from me to add, other than I appreciated your question, Councillor Flowers. I had the same one. How will this be reflected in the community? And I appreciated the examples. Thank you for that. One of the things that makes this easy for me to support is the message that it sends to our senior population, that we care, that they matter, and that we're interested in doing something about making life better and more inclusive for our community here in Cochrane. So I'm fully in support. I guess my question to you, Mr. Ham, is feels like council is relatively 100% supportive. What's next? Would this come to a further council meeting? Do you have the direction you need tonight to move forward?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We'll bring this back next week for a resolution to support a letter of commitment, and then you'll see, we'll establish a resource requirement through the budgetary process.
Great. Okay. Any other questions, council? No? All right. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, ladies, for attending tonight, and I'm glad your first experience in council chambers was positive. Not everybody says that. Moving on. More business. Second quarter 2022 financial report. Ms. Galan.
Right.
Still afternoon. Good afternoon.
I believe we had that debate when I came in here this evening to sit down. So I thought we would start tonight off with a little bit of humor. So I'm betting there's a few chocolate fans in the crowd. Maybe yes. I see some hands up. So I have a bit of a joke. What is the proper pronoun for chocolate?
Are we to answer?
The answer is Hershey. I heard that one today. I thought it was hysterical. And I'm not even a dad, so okay. Now we've had a chance to laugh a little, smile. I present to you this evening the second quarter results for the town of Cochrane, which covers the period from January 1st to June 30th. In December, council approved an operational budget that included $68.2 million of operating expenditures, of which 46% had been spent as of June 30th. That would be the net operating cost was at 46%. So what I mean by that is, of course, if we take our operating revenues less the operating expenditures, net of taxes, this is where we landed. So we're going to dig a little bit more into that, what the operational revenues looked like as of June 30th, as well as the operating expenditures in the next couple slides. As well, council, my apologies, approved a capital budget of $29.2 million for new projects proceeding in 2022, as well as budgetary increases to existing capital projects. During the first 2 quarters, council approved an additional $5 million in capital spending, and this was increases to capital budgets as well as 1 new capital project. So in 2022, we're rolling with 91 capital projects, of which over half rolled forward from the previous year. So as previously mentioned, I was going to chat a little bit more about the operating results. So for revenue in 2022, as of June 30th, we're at about 47.3% collected. These revenues include user fees for our utilities, for water, wastewater, recycling, so on and so forth, as well as for licenses, permits, and also some fines and penalties are included in those results. 47.3% sounds like a pretty desirable place to be as of June 30th. Simple math, you'd want to be about 50% of the way there. If you look at the detailed operating report included in your packaging, it breaks down the operational results by department. The report does reflect the organization prior to the restructure last year in October. So a quick scan of that shows the budgetary amounts remaining for each department. Some are at 50%, plus or minus 3 to 5%, and some are closer to not fully being there, or being a little bit over that 55%. Why, you might ask? Some of our departments, of course, as you're aware, are seasonal or process their revenues annually. An example would be municipal enforcement, who collects their animal license fees in the first quarter. So if you look at their department, their revenue is 100% realized as of June 30th. On the converse side, business development collects business license fees in Q4, so we won't see the revenues in your report till Q4. It's a little bit early in the year to be projecting out where we think we might land. Certainly 47% of revenues is great, but finance will be bringing forward a projection where we think we might be at year end as a part of the Q3 report. What were some of the trends that we noticed for costs? Certainly there were continuing downward pressures on operating expenditures as they pertain to staffing vacancies. Certainly our HR team has been very busy with managers recruiting to fill those vacancies. On the converse side, we also saw staffing and benefit numbers going up as we continued to create those new positions and recruit them. Other downward pressures on operating expenditures were the supply chain issues and manufacturer delays. So in some departments, we see contracting fees very low, and that was the result of some of this. On the converse side, some of the operating expenditures were up over what we had projected. Residents are continuing to make their payments online, sometimes paying via credit card, of which when we do so, we incur a fee. So the financial fees associated with transacting online are up over projection. Moving on to capital projects. In 2022, we had approved, as previously mentioned, 91 capital projects, some of which had carried over from the prior year. We saw $12.3 million of spending for 2022, of which $6 million of that related to 2 of our more significant facilities projects, the new protective services building and the station at Cochrane Crossing. As well, we had Center Ave and Highway 1A, as you can see by driving around the town, is actively underway. We've spent $2 million so far this year on that project, and about $600,000 has been spent to move utilities on Highway 22 so far in 2022. Inflation and supply chain issues will continue to play a significant role in capital projects in 2022, but project managers are working hard to keep their capital budgets in line. But as a result of some of the delays that we're seeing, we may see some of these capital projects delayed. If you were to look at the detailed capital reports included in your packages as well, there's a detailed listing of all the capital projects underway. And on the right-hand column is a status of where each project is at, with most of them being in progress as of June 30th. We'll provide you with an update, as mentioned in Q3, for capital projects that have been completed at that time. I don't have another joke, but this brings me to the end of my presentation, so are there any questions?
First question is, how are you going to get over the bar that you set tonight with your joke in your next presentation? Which I assume might be Q3.
You never know, right? Will I be asked back? Will I not? You gotta take risks sometimes. I wanna be asked back.
Well, I appreciate the humor. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Reid, you have a question?
Comment and 2 questions. One is, I think it's a good news story. And so I would hope that our communications department is on that. And I think it's one thing to kind of have the community involved in a budget process. I think it's quite another to give them a report on a regular basis as to how well the town is doing. And I think this is a good news story, so that would be the comment. Question I had, 2 questions. One was on the Parent Link Center. Just wondering what was going on there, and the other one was under corporate services, and that might be simply due to the restructuring and how it's being reported. And the other is under economic development. I was wondering if you could speak to those 2 lines.
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, I am looking at the report here, and I'm seeing that so for FCSS in general, I'd have to dig into the details for this. What's likely impacting this is that grants are received sometimes once per year. So it looks like this department has budgeted for, if I'm reading this correctly, $442,000 of revenue. But it looks like that grant would be collected at some point in the second quarter, or sorry, in the second half of the year. So
yeah, if you could validate that would be
Sure.
appropriate, just in terms of follow-up. And then the other one was economic development. Is it a similar type thing?
And sorry, the second part of your question, if you don't mind.
Economic development or corporate services?
Yep. Is your question about the,
Minus 41%?
so for economic development, that was one of our examples where their revenues for business licenses will be collected in the last quarter.
Okay,
So
perfect.
that's creating that
Great.
variance. In addition, they do budget for transfers for tourism, and they had the Route 22 funding.
Right.
And 100% of that has also been dispersed and is included in the June 30th results.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your answers, your presentation, and your joke.
Deputy Mayor McFadden?
Well, I am going to put out a challenge for you to improve on the dad jokes. It was a good start, though.
Okay.
And so, can you explain to me how this is laid out? I mean, my short question is on the capital projects. Are there any budgets or any concerns or red flags that we should be paying attention to now that you see? Is pretty much overall the question. But I'm just not understanding how this works on the town of the project report, or the capital project report. So you've got a variance life to date and in progress. And I was just kind of looking to see a variance from what was expected, but yeah, I'm just having a hard time understanding what they mean, because even your boardroom tech upgrades, you've got actual life to date. There's 120,000, and then there's a budget life to date of 271,000. Like, translate that one for me in particular.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor McFadden. Great example, happy to chat that one through. So sometimes with capital projects, we will come back to council as part of the annual budgetary process. We'll have a budget approved. I can't quite recall what the original budget was. Looks like around $150,000. And then in 2022, we came forward and said we're doing extra work, so we need to increase this capital project by $120,000. So I think what this report is trying to convey is how much have we approved for new projects and budgetary increases in 2022, and how much is the total budget for this capital project over the lifetime. Typically, we'll only see budgetary increases for bigger projects. An example on the other side is maybe fleet, where it's pretty known what that cost is going to be, so you'll see it come forward as a part of one annual budget cycle, and it'll typically be complete within that year. So.
Maybe the next time we just get a report on the capital projects, if we could just get a simpler one, this is the budget approved, was whatever, $500,000, and this is what the variance is, because this, I just having trouble understanding this one, like, when you look at the plow truck, so the budget was 500,000, the budget life to date is 500,000, so I would read that as we spent it all, but then you've got a variance life to date of 500,000. So, yeah, so these ones just aren't clear enough for me in my non-accountant brain. So perhaps next time we get a capital project report, it could just simplify it, 3 columns. This is what's approved, this is what's spent, and here's your variance. And then I know what flags to look at. It's my only feedback.
I appreciate the feedback, Councillor McFadden.
Ms. Van Kynpema, you wish to weigh in?
Yeah, if I might. Deputy Mayor McFadden, just to explain with the snowplow, I think sort of the missing key is that the first 2 columns are actuals, but I agree with you that this report is presented in a way that would make sense to accountants. And I had already made a note to say, is there something we could do to this report to make it a little bit more clear in layman's terms? So, thank you.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. So, and then I guess the overall question, at this point, are there any flags that you're seeing on the capital project?
Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, as far as we're aware, the capital projects you see here are all on track. Certainly, they're not immune to some of the pressures that are happening. Capital project managers are very good at adding in some contingency for unknown factors as they may crop up. So I am not aware, long story short, of any additional budgetary requests coming forward as part of capital. So
so far so good. Okay.
So far so good.
Yeah, sorry, because what I would want to see in this is, we're all aware of the inflationary creep, interest rates are going up, life is getting more expensive, and so it's reassuring to me to hear that so far so good, everything that is continuing within budget, there's no red flags. But that's kind of what I would like to be able to pull out of these reports moving ahead. So anyway, thank you for your report. I appreciate it and your patience with my questions.
Councillor Fedayko?
Yeah, I just actually have one question or comment. I'm just wondering about the efficiencies in regarding to processing bills, permits, licensing, those types of ideas where obviously we've seen in the past where, we're growing from a small community to a much larger community. What efficiencies have been done and what might be forthcoming in regards to that to save the community some money?
Through the chair to Councillor Fedayko, certainly. As you're aware, there's a lot of work underway throughout all the departments here, but certainly in finance, we are looking currently at some of our software. And also an example is in the past 2021, we rolled out the ability for residents to be able to pay their animal licenses online. So that was a huge cost saving and efficiency, saving certainly residents time. They could pay this fee annually online from home versus coming into the ranch house or mailing in a check, which can be quite costly, as you know. So that's one efficiency that we've seen great gains from. Certainly we have a compliant community, but I'm noticing that revenues are trending up with that ability to pay online. So that's one example I have. Any others?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily any specific examples this evening, but I do know that as part of the budget process, that was a big part of what we would be bringing to council at that point in time, was talking about efficiencies then. It's a little bit difficult at the Q2 report to talk about the efficiencies, but we'd be happy to give council more detailed information on the efficiencies that have been found, and also some more that we're planning for 2023 and beyond.
Thank you for that. I mean, the one thing that I keep bringing up is the online fees, right? I understand that most people want to pay online, but we need to find a way to remedy this. Like, we can't keep absorbing that cost as a municipality, right? If people want to pay online, then what does that look like? And we need to find a solution. I also think there's probably a lot of out-of-the-box ideas that we can look at when it comes to how we bill people, what licensing looks like, how do people pay? You know, I mean, when you have multiple pets, do people get 1, 2, 3 different notices in the mail for each of their pets? Like, I think there's just multiple ways that we can look at kind of cutting costs that will definitely help us budgetary wise when it comes down to it. And I mean, let's face it, right now, every dollar saved is something that residents are looking for and cheering for. So I think we need to do better when it comes to those things.
Councillor Flowers?
Just to comment about the online payment, I don't know what else we could do. Everybody wants to pay with a card now. Nobody's using cash or check, so I think every organization and every business is struggling with that. I don't know what the answer would be, but my question was around HR. I don't know how many positions are still not filled yet, but do they sit in the HR budget, or are they doled out in between each different department?
Do you want me to take that?
I'll defer this one to Ms. Dina.
All right, so each department is allocated salaries, wages, and benefits in their budget. That is one of the line items. For the $2 million that council had added to our budget for this year, right now that money, the budget money is still sitting in general revenue. As we hire those positions and confirm what the actual dollars will be, we will be transferring those budget dollars out of general revenue account and into the specific departments that those positions are added to. It's just that hadn't been done by the end of June.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it looks like we've exhausted all the questions on Q2. Thank you for your report. Look forward to your bar setting at your next presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're through our agenda other than our in-camera item. Need a motion to go in camera, please. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, as a deputy mayor, I move that we go in camera.
All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute recess from our streaming and go in camera.